All right, Nick, let's talk about the Michigan Wolverines. Great offseason so far. A lot of strong, promising points about this team, but some key injuries on this team has left Michigan looking some interesting places, trying to make some upgrades at one position in particular, so they're not left out to dry if something is to happen. I think this is a really interesting update for the Wolverines, especially the timing is good because transfer portal is about to open up very shortly. We'll get into all this in just a second, but before we do, I'm Andrew, that's Nick, and this is Saturday Morning Inspection. All right, Nick, as I alluded to, due to some injuries, the Wolverines are looking to upgrade one position group in particular through the transfer portal potentially to help them out with depth, kind of keep this team trucking on forward. It's the quarterback position. Very interesting here for the Wolverines. Let's get into the article and we talk more about it on the other side. This is from Maize and Brew, one of the better website names I think we've ever covered on this channel. It says, with Davis Warren recovering from a torn ACL and Mikey King also out, Michigan only has two scholarship quarterbacks participating in spring ball, redshirt freshman Jaden Davis and five-star true freshman Bryce Underwood. Brad Crawford of 24/7 Sports is reporting that Michigan could look at adding another transfer portal quarterback. A source told 24/7 Sports this week that the Wolverines haven't ruled out taking another quarterback during the spring portal cycle as an insurance option if the right player makes himself available. Crawford said the Michigan competition will not be decided August. Obviously, we know Bryce Underwood's looking really good. I think he's going to be the future of this team, but you got to have some guys in the wings. Obviously, you already see injuries at the quarterback position on this team, and you can see how quickly these things happen. So having some good depth at the position, having the right kind of depth for a championship caliber team, that's really important. So I think this is a great update for the Wolverines. I'm curious what your thoughts are on this one, Nick. But before we get to you, Michigan fans, in the comment section below, we might talk about it a little bit later in the video, but I'm curious though, if spring transfer portal opens up, are there any quarterbacks that you're eyeing that you think, I would like to have this guy? Obviously, we're saying Bryce Underwood is the starter, but who do we like as our backup? Is there a backup guy out there that you want to bring in, you think would be a good insurance policy for this team? Let us know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. But nonetheless, Nick, what are your thoughts on this latest out of Michigan?
This is really a smart move by Sharon Moore in Michigan for a couple of reasons. One, you need depth at the quarterback position. Obviously, you need depth at every position, but certainly quarterback. And if you're trying to really bounce back and improve, which I think everyone understands, Michigan certainly has the ability to really take a big leap forward in 2025, win a lot more games than they did last season. If you have your starter go down for a few games, you don't want to just turn those into automatic losses. Having a quality backup can help you ride the storm if injuries occur, which hopefully they don't, but they do happen like we all understand. But the backup quarterback position is a whole lot more, especially if some quality backups, veteran backups, than just providing depth. And there's a couple factors here. The first factor is when you're dealing with a freshman starter, which Underwood, barring something very surprising, will be, you want to have a good foil. You want to have a guy who's sort of a non-threatening veteran who Underwood can work with. They can watch film together. They can kind of commiserate a little bit and figure things out. You want a good quarterback room. The NFL is very good at this. They usually have if a team has a talented young quarterback, they draft a rookie, they like to pair him with a non-threatening veteran, a guy who's played 8, 9, 10, 11 seasons, never really was a starter. He's at the end of his career, and you kind of just allow these two guys just to work together and collaborate with the goal of improving the young guy's performance. That's what NFL teams do, right? That's one of the great strategies I think Harbaugh did during his time in Michigan, taking that NFL kind of mindset that he ran with the 49ers, now with the Los Angeles Chargers, and bringing that Michigan and sort of just the culture and how you manage players and position groups and things like that. And that's what Sharon Moore's doing here. He's like, listen, we got a young guy, we got a freshman quarterback. Let's bring some veterans around him to help him out in the meeting room, help him out on the practice field, get everyone, lighten the load on the quarterback, right? You're the freshman starter for the Michigan Wolverines, right? That is a big task for anybody. You got some, 18, 19-year-old kid who's a few months removed from, going to a senior prom, or if he would have been going to a senior prom, and now he's instead trying to lead the Michigan Wolverines into battle on Saturdays as a starting quarterback, franchise quarterback. Big challenge, obviously. Having some veterans in the locker room, in the quarterback room that have been there before, that they can work with them, can really help things out, right? That's just a good strategy for Underwood's perspective. But you also have to understand your game preparation perspective, because any time in college football, you got a backup quarterback, certainly if he's not the second string, and sometimes if he even is the second string, he has to run the scout team. And that's something that's very important when you're at the upper levels of college football. People don't give this a lot of credit. You need to have quality second, third, and fourth string players, certainly at the skill positions like quarterback. Because if you're trying to prepare your defense to play against Ohio State or another quality opponent that has good quarterback play, and you got some, I don't mean to be mean here, but if you got some scrub quarterback leading your scout team, you're not going to get your defense ready. But if you have a veteran that can go back there, a guy who's played college football, who's been around the block in time where you're preparing for the Ohio State game, and you got a quarterback who can sling it a little bit, you can get your defense ready. You can actually show them good looks. This is a really underrated aspect of college football that a lot of people don't understand. And I think this is why some good teams or teams that we look to be better really suddenly start struggling on defense because a lot of their quality backup quarterbacks go on to become starters at other programs, and then their scout teams suffer because of it dramatically, and then their defense is just isn't prepared on Saturdays. I think this is why we're seeing much higher scoring games across all conferences and a lot more sloppier play on that side of the football, just because teams can't prepare during the week as well as they did in years past when backup quarterbacks were usually very experienced players who had done a lot of college football. Scout team quarterbacks were just better, right? Bringing in veteran transfers allows you to solve that problem as well. So this is just across the board, whether it's helping out Underwood, providing key depth in case of injuries, and also giving you some scout team options to prepare your defense is a really, really great move. I know it's an under the radar move. It's not a headline grabber, but it's a smart strategy by Sharon Moore and the Michigan leadership.
Yeah, Nick, I think this is, like you said, this is going to be good for Michigan. I think they're hitting it at the right time, specifically going out and looking now, because there are some interesting prospects that have hit the portal. And I got two guys that I think would be very interesting. One just recently hit the portal, and the other one has been around for a while, but it kind of fits exactly what you're talking about. First, you got Zach Gibson coming out of Georgia State. He's an older guy, he's been around the block. He kind of fits exactly what you're talking about, very unthreatening. This is a guy who's been around the block. Started out at Akron, went to Georgia Tech, then went to Georgia State, been around the block, been around different offenses, different kind of schemes, played every kind of football, over at Georgia Tech, triple option style football, but also Georgia State, very athletic team, does a lot of really great stuff over there. And then Akron, a lower level of college football as well. Just been all around very well traveled type of quarterback that you can bring in. But also, there's another guy that just hit the portal. That some people initially, because of his allure coming out of high school, would see him as threatening. But personally, I think it'd be a good pit because I don't think he's that threatening because he's everywhere he's gone. He's never really done a whole lot as far as challenging for the starting job, and that's Jaden Rashada, who just came out of the portal, going to hit the portal coming from Georgia. This guy who originally committed to Florida, then went to Arizona State University after that whole debacle, then transferred, learned at Georgia, did some really good stuff over there, learned from a really high caliber of team, saw how people compete at the highest level of football, which Michigan is one of those teams as well. But now hitting the portal once again, trying to go prove his worth. So I think this is a guy who potentially could come over if he felt like he could compete. I don't really think he's threatening Bryce Underwood. I think Bryce Underwood is a much better player than Jaden Rashada, but I think it's an interesting guy, a more high caliber style of backup quarterback. If you need him to come in, he at least had the pedigree coming out of high school to be that type of player. I think that would be a really interesting one, but just nonetheless, I think there's some good options in this spring portal. I think Michigan's going to hit it. None of these guys are necessary. I think the guys that are injured will end up coming back. You're going to have these guys, but it's good to look and it's good to try to figure out who can fit this team. And like you said, they got to fit a certain mold. There is a role for a backup quarterback on a team that's really, really important. And I think a couple of these guys that are already very made themselves available in this portal so far could be good fits for the Wolverine.
Yeah, the Rashada one's very interesting to me, but I think when you look at what you're looking for in terms of a transfer quarterback, I think a lot of that depends on Underwood's demeanor, his mentality. If he's a hyper competitive guy, and I don't know if he is or not, right? There's some reports about his demeanor, but I mean, it's hard to get from the media what an 18-year-old kid is feeling, right? But if he's a hyper competitive guy that thrives when someone's challenging him, takes things personally, use the Michael Jordan meme, you bring in a guy like Rashada to push him, right? Got a big name guy. Oh man, maybe we got a competition here. It's not really a competition, just to push Bryce Underwood. Or if he needs a guy that he just needs I don't want to say a buddy or a pal, but just someone he can work with and collaborate with and just become more prepared mentally as a veteran quarterback. If that's more what he needs, then I think Gibson makes more sense. And I think that's what Michigan's going to factor in here over the remaining couple days and weeks before the transfer portal opens up at the 16th. It's like, okay, where is Underwood at in his development? Does he need a kick in the pants? Okay, maybe we bring in Rashada or a guy like Rashada. It doesn't have to be Rashada, but a guy of that ilk, a bigger name recruit. If he's a guy that doesn't need that kick in the pants, he just needs someone, a comrade in arms, so to speak, then maybe a guy like Gibson or a guy of that ilk can be brought into the fold, again, also to help out your scout team and to provide depth in case of injuries, right? So this is all going to depend on how Underwood develops and shows himself to the coaching staff over the next couple of weeks before they finalize their decision. But overall, it's a really smart strategy by Michigan and their coaching staff. Again, it is the little things, right? We understand when it comes right down to it, the team with more talent and better coaches wins 9 times out of 10. But when it's talented teams and good coaches against talented teams with good coaches, the little things will win out. Michigan has proved that with their victories over Ohio State over the past few seasons. And it's moves like this, making decisions to help out your scout team, that'll help out your defense and preparation, adding depth at a key position, helping in young quarterbacks development. Again, little things that will matter very big in the long term.